Welcome back to Need for Speed The Run. We've finally gotten out of the Rockies and we're going to be going into Middle America.
Yeah, unfortunately it doesn't look like Colorado is going to be as much of a set piece as we'd hoped, but...
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to top the summit run. We are going to start off in Colorado, though.
And once again, we've got the Raging Bull to work with.
I forgot you can't actually do that in city courses in the Gallardo.
Oh dear. And at the very least, it looks like the weather's gonna agree with us a bit more. Oh, I guess we're not in the Gallardo after all.
No, we're not. The Gallardo's too good for us.
Yeah, it'll have to go back to that Corrida de Toros in the sky.
So, after we beat Caesar, we got his car, but we're not going to be driving it.
Oh, so it's Ace Combat. You get the guy's vehicle after you.
Exactly.
Firebird? Firebird, really?
There's nothing that says Middle American small-town chaos quite like a souped-up Trans Am, and we've got one.
You make a fair point there, so yeah, let's paint the town red, shall we?
We absolutely will, and this is kind of a trial by fire for me. I've never driven this car past this point.
You just keep having to make it more interesting for yourself, don't you?
And about the time that I took that jump, that was about the time I realized I goofed by picking this car.
Oh god, it's Super Snake version 2.0.
I would say that this is even more frustrating to drive than the Super Snake. It's got its good points. The Firebird has a really nice, strong nitrous, which is very important because you want to be nitrosing all the time in this car.
Yeah, especially when running over plastic street lamps like that one.
However, the Super Snake really has a tendency to understeer out of corners at sort of mid-speeds like these. And the Firebird doesn't.
Yeah, it seems to be just fighting every inch of inertia going forward.
Exactly. This is a 70s car and it has a 70s suspension. And when I'm racing modern Corvettes, it doesn't end too well.
Good lord, that turn.
Yeah.
On the plus side, it looks like you're just able to knock people out of the way if they sideswipe you like that.
Yeah, I got really lucky with that RX-7. One other weird quirk about the Firebird is that it only has 5 gears. Which means that while I'm trying to navigate these hairpins, I'm also not quite sure where the shift points are. So you're going to hear me maxing out the rev limiter too much.
Oh dear. You seem to be building some draft bar off this guy.
I am. It's just enough to allow me to overtake in this kind of heavy traffic.
And so you make a top speed of 190. Yeah, clearly the Gallardo's too good for us.
Yeah, the Gallardo has a top speed of 197, and that would have actually helped us in this run through Commerce City because so much of it is kind of stop and go. With muscle cars in general in the run, what you trade off for top end is good acceleration in sort of low to mid speeds. Not quite handling, but if you need to go in a straight line and you're kind of in that bracket, muscle car is a great choice.
You certainly made it work for you, given the challenges you had to face with some of those turns.
Thanks.
Oh, wow. Oh, you actually used it.
I told you I would.
Oh.
You'll notice a little cut here. Due to a recording issue that I experienced. But it's worth it.
So, Diacord and I were talking about this before. This is my favorite Slam Jam.
It's an excellent Slam Jam. This is straight out of Fist of the North Star.
It sure is. It's the movie version.
And I knew that you wanted to use it for something that was a really intense kind of 1v1 race.
Yeah.
actually at a pretty strong disadvantage here because we're racing the Ford GT. The Ford GT has a top speed of 202.
Hopefully, you can't juke traffic.
So it ended up not being an issue.
Alright, now you got this guy to knock out. Let's see you do it.
He's in a Mercedes SLS, which is another car that's way faster than us.
Well, at least it's not that SLR Sterling Moss edition that he'll die if he flips over in it.
I'm pretty sure at these speeds, it doesn't matter what you're driving, you're probably still dead zone.
You know, it's the music. It's actually making me hyped for this race and for the first time in a while.
I knew you would like the music.
Come on, Dicorn, you can catch him.
That cutscene actually has the original song playing over it, and kind of like in episode 3, you can't turn it off. So I had to pick something that had a good build-up.
Well, you shocked me good, let me tell you.
I'm glad I did. I had to make this event interesting somehow. Highway 20 is probably the shortest event in the game.
Well, it had a nice touch going into it. Now I'll have to see if I can find other good slam jams I like to add to the collection.
Well, we've still got a few episodes left, so get them in now.
Alright.
We're not going to spend too much time in Nebraska.
Evidently not.
We're going right to South Dakota.
This one's dangerous, Jack. Stay alert.
There's nothing particularly dangerous about this race, Christina Hendricks, but thanks.
Only thing I can think of is that appears to be a storm going on in the background, so is this going to turn into that Hot Pursuit level where the police break out unlimited CCX works on you?
Not exactly. This is a pretty challenging race regardless. Because everything in Badlands National Park is so narrow and there's so much traffic, you're going to see me make some kind of scary dodges.
Well, at the very least, it looks like your Trans Am has it seems to at least have a slightly narrow profile to work with.
Yeah. It does work out pretty good in that regard, but we're still fighting that old washy 70s suspension. So a lot of these dodges will be a little bit closer than I would like them to be.
Well, you're able to maintain a good line for this part, at least.
A big part of that is just familiarity with the track. I'm also trying to not be too aggressive because I know that I'm in the middle of 3 other cars. When you're on Badlands National Park, the biggest thing is to make sure you pick your choices to overtake.
And in this case, not taking the shortcut was preferable for that, just because you wouldn't have to try and fight around those other cars.
It is, in fact. By not taking the shortcut, I found that I was able to consistently come into this section with a higher speed, which made it easier to do these overtakes.
Plus, is the Trans Am any... Oh.
Yeah.
I guess this will answer my next question about how the Trans Am handles when you're off-road.
Badly.
So, about the same as on-road, then.
Yeah. Again, there are a lot better choices for off-road.
I didn't realize how much I missed vertical shooting dust clouds.
With a little nitrous, we're just able to edge out this Nissan GTR.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Oh boy, damage modeling seems to show quite intensely on this Trans Am.
Well, I think a big part of it is just the fact that the car is blacked out. That probably changes the way that you perceive the damage, because the paint is all high gloss and stuff.
I should add, too, on the subject of good music, this is probably one of my favorite Brian Tyler tracks on the soundtrack.
Yeah, a lot of the original soundtrack work that's done for the run is actually very good. It's totally listenable by itself.
Again, Brian Tyler, very solid composer. I mean, if Hans Zimmer's too experimental and Gregson Williams too subtle, then Brian Tyler's the guy you want.
Sounds about right. He's going to be backing us for this next checkpoint run. This make-up time event is... I consider this to be probably the most difficult one in the game. You have no margin for error whatsoever. Turns are all completely blind. And to boot, we're also driving a car I've never driven before. So what you're seeing here is the result of a lot of practice.
In civilian traffic, to boot.
One thing I'd also like to point out about this run is that South Dakota 240 is actually just South Dakota 44, which we just did, but backwards.
You know, for a game that kind of purports to be about this crazy high-octane version of the American road trip, I'm really kind of surprised that they had to resort to mirroring tracks as much as it seems that they did.
And this one was a particularly lazy mirror, because at least for the other ones, you know, they change around the weather, or they change around the time of day, but this one, nope. It's the same environment, same weather, same everything, just you're going backwards.
Seems like the lightning storm's retreating from you, no less.
They are. That shortcut was in fact the one that we skipped the first time around.
You know, we haven't said it in a while. I think I'm going to have to now. Thanks, EA.
Thanks, EA. With judicious use of nitrous, we're able to come in with 2 seconds left to spare on each of these checkpoints, but that's really pushing myself in the Trans Am. Especially when you have to dodge traffic like that.
A very nice needle thread.
Which is always a liability in the Trans Am.
Yeah, I recognize this sequence of turns.
Yeah.
At least Mick Gordon's cheering you on in the background.
He is. So now we're actually out to the final section of this. Number 4 is probably the most difficult because of how much speed you can lose, especially in a muscle car, on the sort of switchback turns in checkpoint 4. This is that long straightaway. And because of the fact that the ground's not even, a lot of this is blind, so I'm looking ahead trying to figure out where all the traffic is.
Yeah, don't target fixate now.
Trying very hard not to.
The other thing I find somewhat disappointing, perhaps, at these end-of-race screens is that they do very explicitly just despawn all the civilian traffic. So if Jack was still on course and that other Winnebago ahead of you is still there, this might have been a little more entertaining to look at.
I would love to see the AI try and auto-pathfind its way around the civilian traffic.
I feel like that's one of the things that made Need for Speed 2015 as entertaining as it was.
Oh, I agree. We're coming up into another rival event. Meet Calvin Garrett. With 1 T in his name and 2 T's on the license plate, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
He gets too far ahead, we're finished.
He wants a prize fight, he's gonna get one.
Talking of events that are just mirrored images of one another, this first section is just the first section of Rushville. That shortcut is actually open to us, and I'm totally not going to take it because it means losing too much speed.
Yeah, it looks like this rival fight is going to have a bit more going for it than ones prior, because it does seem that he's still capable of fighting you for first place.
His rubber banding is in full effect, unfortunately. We're also coming into this with a disadvantage because, like I said, in Highway 20, the SLS has a very high top speed for the class. Definitely faster than the 190 that we're capable of. He also kind of got wrecked and can't dodge traffic quite like we can.
That's fair.
But this is Need for Speed, so of course he'll be back to make our day difficult before the end. Also, frostbite physics.
Was that 2 cars you just cleared there?
I did.
Very nice. The sheer amount of air you're getting for this section of it is helping mix it up a bit and leading to some very interesting instances of threading the needle. Oh, first by a hair. Nice work.
I was just able to overtake him, like, maybe a few frames before the end of the event. One of the things about the muscle cars in this game in particular is that jumps do not agree with their bad suspensions. Every jump that I land, I was not at all sure where I was going to go, which led to a couple of near misses. And because of the fact that you can't absorb bumps very well, you lose so much speed that the AI can just overtake you.
Nice profile icons, by the way.
Thank you. I like the sushi octopus thing. I don't know quite how that's relevant, but thanks. This is from a backup run.
Whoa.
So Calvin can hit you coming out of the shortcut.
And then...
Yeah.
You know, that was nice of you. That was very sportsmanlike, I think.
I wasn't trying to hit him, it's just I saw that the road was curving left and that there were headlights on me. I assumed that he was another piece of traffic and that he was going to turn, so I went straight.
Oh, sick burns for Mr. Garrett. You're just another piece of traffic to our hero, Jack Rourke.
Well, he is when he's sitting backwards and his AI's bugging out and not allowing him to go anywhere. But by hitting him, I actually turned him around so he started racing again.
Well, that was quite a stage. Let's look forward to the next one, shall we?
This is all very picturesque and scenic.
Middle America.